Hey there, Bright Lights. It's great to have you back with me today for this episode of The Space Doctor on the Architecting Channel. If you don't know me, my name is Angela. I am an architect, feng shui practitioner, and researcher, and I study the science behind design for well-being so you don't have to. All you have to do is like and subscribe to this channel, and you will get thoughtful weekly videos that explore different parts of the science, the psychology, the sociology, the anthropology, the neurology, all of that, the why behind how the spaces we are surrounded in every day are impacting us. And we do this using my Salutogenesis deck, which has two parts. The first part are foundational concepts, the things that are at the core of what creates wellness or dis-ease. The second part are the salutogenesis cards themselves. There are 5 aspects of salutogenesis. Each one of them is also paired with a feng shui element. Each one is an alphabet. So there's the 5 core theories, but then there is even more theories and science, and I draw a card from each part of the deck, and then I talk about those cards as they relate to one another. So yes, the message will be different, even if I've drawn a card before, and I really do set an intention when I shuffle that the cards that we all need to hear, the messages we need to be exploring, the themes we need to be sitting with this week are the cards that will come up. So the first card from the foundational aspects part of the deck is respiration. Now, respiration basically is bringing in the spirit into our body. That is what breathing is. It is a true connection to the world. It is the true energy and the life force in our bodies. And you can see that in this card. The blue sky represents the clarity, the possibility. The clouds are revelations, higher thought, messages from the divine. And we're bringing all that in, and we're getting that bright light within our brains, within our nervous system, that is energizing and restoring our entire body. In fact, studies have shown that nasal breathing in particular synchronizes electrical activity in the olfactory cortex. So it's not just about smelling, there's so much more going on here, but also our amygdala and our hippocampus that will improve our physical and mental health. And that's because when we breathe through our nose, we produce nitrous oxide. That's a neurotransmitter that stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. So we talk about the sympathetic nervous system getting activated when we're stressed out. The opposite of that is the parasympathetic nervous system. So if we can turn that on, we not only can calm down that stress response, but we can move into what's called the rest and digest, that restorative phase. And there is a real link that has been shown between our body and our mind, and our breath is a big part of that. So just as an example, when we feel stressed, among the many things that happen, our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that is responsible for rational thinking, for logic, that shuts down and our amygdala takes over. Now, that makes it hard to be calm, to be logical, to be exercising reason or make plans. You lose your emotional intelligence and you are simply in a reactive state. Now, that clearly isn't the most helpful thing. In fact, most of the stress we have today, because we're not actually escaping or fighting a danger, we're losing the very things we most need in order to cope with that stress. So we definitely want to learn how to switch it off. And breath is a big part of that. And also, you may be surprised to know that emotional states are associated with different ways of breathing. So if you can breathe in certain patterns, that's what breath work is all about. You can actually create different emotional states in your body. But let's just talk about a very simple one, which is feeling happy and joyful. So when you feel that way, you have regular, deep, slow breaths. Now, on the other hand, if you're feeling anxious or fearful, you're going to have short, fast, shallow breaths that don't fully fill your lungs with oxygen. And therefore, you're even shortchanging the amount of oxygen that you're getting. When you take those slower, deeper breaths, when your diaphragm is fully activated, you are slowing your heart rate, and you're also stimulating a nerve called the vagus nerve, which runs from your brainstem all the way through to your abdomen, and it is part of the parasympathetic nervous system. Being very aware of your breathing, doing some breath work, and being very deliberate about noticing when you feel stressed and choosing one up by choosing to breathe is really going to make a difference. It's hard to calm down just because you know you should, but it is a lot easier to do that when you incorporate breath work. Now, our companion card is from the biophilia part of the deck. Remember, biophilia is the wood element in feng shui, and wood is about growth and networks and connectivity and relationships. And the card that we got is non-rhythmic stimuli. Now, that sounds really, really complicated and technical, but it's not. In fact, as you could see on the card, there's many things in nature that are non-rhythmic. For example, the clouds that we see going across the sky. No two clouds are the same. They are in different formations and patterns. The canopy of a tree, if you are laying down looking up through the trees, a mountain range, the way that the waves in the ocean work, there isn't a predictable pattern or rhythm. That's why it's called non-rhythmic stimuli. And that can actually be a very calming and restorative way to connect with the natural world. Those clouds, again, we got the clouds, the connection back to our previous card on respiration, really are about revelations, epiphanies, the blue sky, again, clarity, positivity. The hot air balloon that you see also represents hope, being open to possibilities and abandoning your struggles. So I think that is a really important message that we're getting today about aspiring to a more positive, more calm state, and doing that by being in that state of surrender. So, what does this mean, though, in the built environment? Because you're saying, well, great, you're teaching me self help stuff. What does that have to do with design? Well, we can absolutely design in a way that's going to help us breathe more deeply and more calmly and introduce some of these non-rhythmic sensory stimuli. What are some ways that we can do that? When we are working specifically with non-rhythmic stimuli, that means that we want to choose random patterns, dynamic lighting, or even sound effects, even random lighting that is going to mimic, say, dappled lighting that you might find under a tree canopy in nature. We want to think about kinetic elements, things that might move with the wind or move with the HVAC system or react to the sunlight hitting them, things that are iridescent, things that change as you move around them. So, for example, this is a big trick from architecture school, the canopy that gradually changes slope as you go, and it more or less starts to form a curve. Or the way if you are looking down a row of columns and you're standing in just the right place, it can look like a solid wall, but as you start to move, you see that those columns are actually pretty far apart. You can play with things like that so that it is a very unexpected, unpredictable experience. You can play with transparencies, iridescent, shadows, all of those kinds of things in design to have more non-rhythmic sensory stimuli introduced in the spaces. Now, why does this matter? Well, because when we encounter these, we actually release oxytocin, and that helps us to lower our stress response. Remember, we have a card about this specifically, that oxytocin and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is the stress response, are mutually regulating. So you can't have both of them elevated. So when we encounter these non-rhythmic sensory stimuli and we have more oxytocin, it means we're naturally going to be less stressed. And finally, we can have much more of a restorative effect because we are letting go, just to focus on the distraction of the non-rhythmic. It's why it's so calming to lay out in the grass on a beautiful day and stare up at the clouds in the sky and try to figure out what shapes you think you might be seeing in them. That level of positive distraction is taking your mind off of whatever else is going on in your life. So it's helping you to calm down. So when we are designing, certainly views to the outside so we can notice some of Mother Nature's non-rhythmic sensory stimuli is important. But I also talked about ways you can mimic some of those within the space. We can also think about breathing in terms of movement. So when we give people more opportunities to move, they're going to naturally breathe more slowly as they move, as they exert themselves and take deeper breaths, which is going to help with that positive effects that we get from respiration. So we can use what's called active design, making it appealing to take the stairs because they're out in the open, they're fun to climb, they're more accessible to us than the elevator. Creating paths for walking and pacing and moving, creating opportunities to get outside and move around when you're on a break, creating opportunities within a space. Maybe we don't make everything so close together and so convenient so that we have to move more in order to go to the printer or go get a cup of coffee. Things like that are going to help introduce movement, which is going to cause you to need to take more deeper, slower breaths, and you're going to get those positive effects of respiration by deliberately creating active design moments. So I hope that this helped you think a little bit more about how design can help us calm down. And if you enjoyed what you were hearing, please remember to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know what you've tried, what's working for you. If you see these non-sensory stimuli in a space that you go into? Let me know. Take a picture, send it to me. I would love to see it. But thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.